Welcome to Work Liberated. This is the podcast you want to listen to if the workplace being the kind of place people want to be part of is important to you. If you know something in the world of work is off and you want to improve it. If you're leading people through change and you know that the environment at work is just as important as the work you're doing. If being a leader who inspires people is important to you, you will want to listen or watch Work Liberated. Hello, my name is Margaret Graziano, your host for Work Liberated. And today we have Sean Fargo with us. And our conversation today is about mindfulness at work. As a reminder, Work Liberated is a podcast for people that are interested in having a new relationship with work, how they work, why they work, when they work, and how they work with others. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Margaret.
Could you tell me a little bit about what you do for the world, what your contribution is for your work?
Sure. So I'm the founder of Mindfulness Exercises, which is an online platform that shares thousands of free mindfulness trainings for people at work and at home to reduce stress, anxiety, depression, addiction, insomnia, and to live more happy, stress-free lives.
Yeah, everything everyone needs right now. So Sean and I met in a program called Hoffman, which I'm a connoisseur of transformational programs. And I got to know him a little bit, and we worked pretty heavily as a group in our own kind of internal reflection and retrospection. And we're actually going to have one of the teachers from Hoffman with us at our next podcast. So that'll be exciting. So for you, when you do training, Sean, as a teacher who does trainings, similar to myself, I'm a teacher who does trainings. What is your attitude about growing, learning, and you yourself being a student?
Yeah, I think for me as a student and also as a teacher, the things that I try to emphasize are a combination of courage and sincerity. So courage to open up to what may be unpleasant, what's uncertain. We all have different fears of judgment, of what we might encounter that's unpleasant. And so it takes a lot of courage to bring mindfulness to our emotions and to others, because we don't often know what we're, going to get. So courage is a big factor. And then also sincerity that, with mindfulness, there's a level of sincerity that we need to be able to really open and allow the experience to unfold. It's not about fixing anything. It's not about achieving anything. It's not about getting to the outcome as quickly as possible. It's about really opening to what's here. And that takes a level of sincerity to really open and allow, because oftentimes as teachers, as trainers, we try to force the outcome. We try to force what's going to happen. We try to make certain experiences unfold, try to force it. And with mindfulness, we kind of need this opening, allowing, this beginner's mind of looking at things with fresh eyes and tending to what's actually here. So this level of courage and sincerity are both really important. The Hoffman process that you mentioned was at times a little scary, a little unorthodox, to say the least. I'm glad I didn't know what it was before I went, because I don't know if I would have gone. I don't even know how to describe it to people sometimes, because there's unorthodox, intense things that happen. But it took a lot of courage to open up to what they asked us to do, and a level of surrender and sincerity to actually meet it as it arose and kind of just let it happen.
So
And
let me ask you a question. In the realm of learning, I read recently that for the brain to learn, it needs to have an element of shock or surprise. Like when we do the same thing over and over and over again, we become kind of robotic and in our comfort zone, and our neural pathways are just taking the same path that they've taken the day before and the day before and the day before. So almost every training that I've been in, people have said, "Oh, I can't really tell you what happens because we want the element of surprise." How real is that the brain needs something new that I wasn't planning on having happen for me to learn? How is that just what people say, or is there
no,
evidence?
that's real. I think about 15 years ago, that science came out when we were learning about neuroplasticity and what are the factors of creating those new neural pathways that are incorporated with learning and real habit change. And this element of novelty, awe, you could call it surprise or shock, is very real. And that's a huge part of mindfulness in the sense that we really do want to look at things with a sense of freshness. When we practice mindfulness intensively, if we go on a mindfulness retreat, for example, where we're practicing all day, every day, there's this level of sensitization that happens where each moment becomes more and more fresh, more and more new. And it's not just a perception thing, it's real, like reality is actually new in this very moment. Things are always changing, internally and externally. It's always a fresh new moment. And so with trainings, we try to bake that in. As you said, the Hoffman process does it. With mindfulness trainings, it's really important to emphasize this sense of novelty, that this moment is new, this breath is new, this experience is new. It's never happened before, even if it's similar to other experiences, or even if it's similar to what we expect, it's still brand new. And so can we relate to it with that sense of novelty? It's really important.
Yeah, it's that's a good tip for me, because part of many of my programs is we walk people through a meditation. And I always wonder if there's someone like me in the audience saying, "Oh, I've done this before. I've been here before." And I always want to say, "Hey, this is you've never actually been in this room with these people." So now I'm going to say that. So another thing that when it comes to mindfulness and bringing that to work, I recently read a statistic from the National Health Institute that the average human being has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and that 85% of those thoughts are negative and repetitive. So if that's even remotely true, how can somebody shut down their thinking long enough to even be mindful? I know that's probably a big loaded question, but it's a good place to start.
Yeah. A lot of us are caught in these thought loops, rumination, worry about the future, or ruminating about the past. And so a way to mitigate that, or to maybe reduce the number of thoughts, or the number of, say, self-critical thoughts, would be to build in these little moments throughout the day, these pockets of pauses, where we just kind of check in with our bodies for a moment. This could be 10 seconds, it could be 10 minutes, or anywhere in between, but where we just kind of pause what we're doing, feel our body on the ground or the seat, just kind of connect with the belly as it rises and falls. Just kind of being curious, what can I feel right now? What can I notice in my internal experience from an objective standpoint? Yeah, there might be heaviness in the belly, or I can feel my feet on the ground. Oh, yeah, I can notice the rise and fall of my belly. Maybe I'll just kind of soften the shoulders a little bit. Just kind of tuning into different parts of the body and just kind of inviting a sense of softness, sense of just noticing what's here, not trying to feel a certain way, not trying to fix anything or get anywhere, just to bring this level of noticing what's here, just inviting a sense of ease or softness if we can, but checking in. And this will help slow the momentum of the thoughts. This will help us remember our bodies as we did in the Hoffman process, checking in with the body, maybe noticing what emotions are present, maybe the quality of spirit that we may be carrying, whatever that means to us. We're just kind of checking in, slowing down, stopping the momentum of thinking. And then after that 10 seconds or 10 minutes, we'll find that we have some level of, refreshness of the mind, a little bit of a balanced mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little bit more, not slowness, but just like choiceful thinking, because we have that new perspective and like, oh, yeah, things weren't quite as bad as I thought, or now I'm coming at this with a refreshed body and mind so that I can just, tend to life with a little bit more ease.
So for many of the people I work with, they're on the executive team, and the coaching that I give them is you've got to have white space in your calendar. You've got to have time to think. But I don't think I've ever said, just take 10 seconds or 30 seconds just to connect with yourself before you go in a meeting or before you have that tough conversation that you need to have. So that's what I'm hearing you say, even just pockets of time.
Yeah. So at work, we can build these in a number of ways that are very practical and that don't seem too woo woo or out there. They can be very incognito. Some people practice mindful walking on their way to and from the restroom. So just sensing the bottoms of our feet touching the ground as we walk, and maybe walking a little slower than normal, but just sensing heel, arch, toes, heel, arch, toes, heel, arch, toes. Inside the restroom, we can find these little pockets of pauses. More and more people are starting meetings with just 1 minute of mindful breathing, a little mini meditation, if you will. Some people, as they're waiting for people to come to the meeting, will just kind of pause and notice the rhythm of their breath or the sensations of the belly as it rises and falls. Lunchtime, you can build the last 10 minutes of lunch as a little mindfulness meditation. Some people will do this whenever they walk through a doorway, whether it's the front office or a lobby, like any kind of doorway at work. They will enter the room and wish loving kindness to everyone in that room, and wish them well, and maybe kind of notice each person, maybe tune into their energy, empathize to whatever extent they can, and just wish them well as people. Not that we're trying to get anything out of them per se, but we're just wishing them well as humans. So there's these little opportunities that we can do. If our phone, anytime a phone rings or anytime we get a text, we can just take maybe even just 5 seconds before we look at it, notice what energy we're carrying, and then answer the phone, and then look at the text. So just even 5 seconds before we tend to our phone.
So I'm hearing a lot of self-awareness, like in order to even have the sense to say, I need to be mindful, we have to be aware of ourself even, right? Oh, I just walked through the door. I'm walking through the door. Or I'm waiting for a meeting to start, or I might feel an agitation, right? I just got off the phone with the SEO guy and he says, our whole website is terrible.
Yeah.
I gotta ground myself before the next call. Otherwise, I'm going to bring that level of nervous energy, which some people might call drive, but I call it nervous energy, into the next conversation. And so it seems like self-awareness is a big piece of it. What do you
Yeah, it's
think?
self-awareness, and it's really just remembering to check in, remembering to take these pauses. And the more we practice this, the stronger we build this muscle of remembering. And so a lot of teachers and mindfulness experts will talk about just remembering more and more often, checking in with the sensations of the body and the emotions. But the more we practice, the more it becomes second nature. The more we just automatically start remembering these things whenever certain level of intensity arises. When we get that nervous energy, it might clue us in like, oh, I haven't paused for a while. Let me just take a moment to remember to check in. And
or
then
even
through that
move
process,
my body, even step up and, move my body, get out of the chair.
absolutely. Yeah. Drink some water, take a break, step outside.
So let me ask you, on the heels, I mean, I think we've had 3 weeks now of extreme violence in our country, specifically like, with people with guns and kids and public places. And not just that, we had the Great Resignation where people were quitting their jobs in high volume. And now we're having something called the Great Termination, which is mass amount of layoffs. And so we've got, crime, politics, job security, stock market. When we talk about mental health, emotional health, mental health, what role does mindfulness play in a regular everyday person, no diagnoses, mental health?
Yeah, it's highly important, and it's my favorite form of healing because it is very healing. Yeah, a lot of people are struggling with addiction, depression, anxiety, insomnia, and it's sad. It's extremely sad about what's happening in the world, and of course, we're going to have grief around it, anger, lot of anxiety. These emotions are very natural. If we didn't feel these things, I'd be worried. Unfortunately, a lot of us are feeling it a little too much right now. And so with mindfulness, it's really important to remember that it's okay to feel what we feel. And it's also important to feel what we feel. And this is the role of mindfulness, is to allow these feelings to come up without judgment. So we're not judging these feelings to be good or bad, right or wrong. We're just allowing ourselves to be with them in their raw forms, allowing these energies to process and to move through us, allowing the anger to be expressed in healthy ways, allowing ourselves to feel some anxiety. Like, what is this telling us? Allowing ourselves to grieve. And most of us have a lot to grieve. And so mindfulness allows us to feel these things without suppressing them, without fighting them, without judging them. And the more that we actually open to these feelings, the greater the healing. And so this is an important part of mindfulness, to be able to feel what we feel.
Yeah, so it's interesting because as you know, Sean, and as the guests know, this podcast is work liberated. And the vision is to forever liberate the human spirit at work, liberate, to be free. And I remember the first time someone introduced me, my coach, Ann Betts, who's also been a guest. She developed her and her partner developed these 7 energy levels of organizational effectiveness, which the lowest ones are hopelessness, fear, and frustration. And then we move above the energy ladder from courage to engagement to innovation to synchronicity. And I remember her saying, you know, when you're in fear, your fear is there to tell you something. And what most people do is if they're afraid or they're anxious, they push it down. They want it to go away. Or if they're angry, they've been trained, you can't be angry, you can't be upset. So they suppress it. So what you're talking about is noticing it and then expressing it in a healthy way. So how do I at work express anxiety in a healthy way? And then the next question is, how do I express anger at work in a healthy way? Because we get brought in because people are not expressing these things in a healthy way. They are covert operators, or they're sabotaging themselves or others, or they're screaming and yelling, or they're stonewalling. And it's just gotten to be an entangled situation. So how does the average person who wants freedom express anxiety in a healthy way?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so in terms of that, like 7 levels, you know, just acknowledging what's here is really important. And there's this level of empathy for ourselves, like what's going on? There's this level of self-compassion that naturally takes place. Like, oh man, there is a lot of fear here. What is this fear like in the body? Can I open to the fear? So we're bringing mindfulness to the core fears. We're opening to the fears, allowing the fears to intensify even within our window of tolerance. The more that we're able to open to our fears without judgment, and this is a key part, without judging the fears to be good or bad, right or wrong. And some of us will judge them to be wrong, and some of us will judge it to be right. So we're softening the judgments of the fear itself, opening to the fear with some level of allowance, care, openness, tenderness. And that mindfulness and that self-compassion will help diffuse the reactivity around the fear, which is responsible for those unhealthy ways of expression of anxiety and anger.
Yeah.
So the more that we're able to help diffuse the reactivity around it, because we're kind of tending to it with some level of soft, tender care, gentle awareness, we're then able to access ways of expressing them with some vulnerability, which takes courage.
If your own evolution as a leader is important to you, you want to check out Evolve the Leader Within. Just scroll down, click the link, and learn more of how you can up-level your leadership and cultivate your highest and best self at work and in every other area of life.
So, for example, I might say, I'm feeling very anxious because you're telling me I just spent $10,000 on a website that doesn't work. I need to take a break. That's what I said to the guy. I said, I think I can't talk anymore. I need to go process this, because he wanted to give me more and more information. But I knew that had I taken any more information, I would go from anxious to angry at the other people who built the site.
Right.
So I was sort of proud of myself that I said, I can't take in anymore. Right now, I need a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what if that was my boss, and my boss was telling me that I wasn't performing? And then I said, I can't take anything else.
Yeah.
I need a break.
Yeah, it's good to set boundaries for yourself and to to notice, I might say something I might regret. Let's just both take a break right now for me to process this and then return to this when I have more bandwidth. That's a very healthy way of relating to it. There's wonderful mindful communication trainings by Oren J. Sofer that I highly recommend. A book called Say What You Mean. And then there's a book called Difficult Conversations by the guys at Harvard who wrote about how to bring mindful communication to work.
Great.
But Yeah, it's tricky. I think bringing curiosity is usually a good default. Like, oh, tell me why you're saying that. Can I get more context? What can we do about this? Or what's the goal here? So leading with questions is usually a good thing. But in terms of sharing your own emotions and expressing them, I'm a big fan of journaling things out first. Um, Practicing talking about it beforehand, but also not saying anything around blame or harsh critique about them as people per se in the work environment. Try to state things as objectively as possible, state what we're feeling, and why we're feeling them, and then try to get some context from them as to whether or not, like, am I perceiving this accurately? Like, am I hearing this correctly? Is there more information that I should be knowing? Or
That's great. So let me ask you this about anger. So somebody is very angry. They're coming at you in let's just say in an angry way. And I don't want it to match anger with anger. Although in coaching school, they will teach us the range, because there are some times if somebody's really hot-headed, what they need is for you to meet them where they are. But in an everyday diffusion, I know that that's not the way to do it. So someone's just super abrasive, aggressive, pissed off. What's a way, if I don't want to get hooked by that poison, how do I respect that person and say, no, we're not doing it. Like, I'm not doing this now.
Yeah, I mean, if it depends on if this is a chronic situation, whether it's in a group setting, what the roles are. So there's different nuance here, but in general, I will try to meet them with compassion. And what that means is empathizing with where they're coming from, really like listening, maybe asking a few questions, and wanting to acknowledge and meet them just where they're at. Oh, yeah, I see there's some anger here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of when you said it. You sound really angry.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there's some intense anger right now. And I'd like to, learn more about where you're coming from and really get your point of view here. So that I can meet them with some level of care, some level of curiosity, because oftentimes that's what people want.
Yeah.
Is to be understood, to be acknowledged. Maybe even while they're angry and expressing their anger, maybe they already know that it's inappropriate, that they're, off the handle, and, they wish they weren't feeling that way. But if we can just meet them with that level of acknowledgement, ask a few more questions. I'm a big fan of asking people, well, what do you need right now? What would you like from me? Because oftentimes it may be different from what we assume. Or sometimes they don't even know what they want from you. They just need to express something. And by being asked, what do I want? Like, well, let me think about that. Let me engage my prefrontal cortex and, slow down enough to be able to think through, like, what is it that could be the most useful for me right now?
Yeah, that's
and then
great.
Go from there.
That's great, because I think the biggest issue people have at work is getting along with other people. That's what, I mean, if the company's paying them and if they have a decent job, the next big conflict is these inter-work relationships and the dynamics. It's like we all bring our familia self to work, and then the family that I was raised in is different than the family that you're raised in. And so we're like, wait a second, we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
So how does a one person, actually I want to back up a minute. When you said journaling, I thought of Byron Katie. What's actually happening in this moment.
Is it true?
Is it true? And then what's the, do you know the third
Yeah, you
piece
kind of
to it?
flip it around. Like, what's the opposite of my assumption or my, yeah. So you do a little flipping. But yeah, journaling can be really helpful to express yourself in a way that's nonviolent.
Yeah. And so that's when you talked about the communications training. I thought you were going to say nonviolent communication.
Yeah, so Oren Sofer is a lead NVC teacher, nonviolent communication teacher, but he combines nonviolent communication with somatic experiencing and mindfulness. And he weaves them all together into his trainings around his book, Say What You Mean. And he leads these trainings at Apple and Google and, a lot of the top corporations for this purpose of interpersonal harmony. And so, that type of training is a huge part of Google's Mindfulness at Work program, Search Inside Yourself. But also the other key component for interpersonal dynamics is around empathy and compassion. And one of the ways that they and I, because I'm one of their trainers, lead people through empathy and compassion for their colleagues is through, well, first of all, you need to be able to sense into your own emotions with greater and greater nuance, because that then helps you to be able to tune into what other people may be experiencing. But there's this exercise called Just Like Me that I highly recommend. You can find it at my website, Just Like Me. It's just a kind of a guided meditation practice in which you reflect on someone you're having some challenges around, say your boss or a subordinate or a peer. And basically, you remember that experience happiness just like you, grief just like you, anger just like you, that they have, parents just like you. There's this long list of things that you share a lot of similarities around, and that, they're not the other as an enemy anymore. The more you practice this, they're more kindred. They're more
On the same team.
Yeah. And so this practice helps us to build this empathy and level of care for them. And oftentimes when I work with teams at companies, there's a lot of tears involved. And oftentimes you're actually looking at someone eye to eye or you're imagining them, but it becomes very real and very human. And it can help diffuse that othering and judging that so often takes place.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted you to do a training like that for them, they just reach out to you through your website?
Yeah, mindfulnessexercises.com. And we have a whole host of products and trainings to help people integrate mindfulness into different parts of their lives.
But if they wanted you to do the training, they could just send you an email?
Yeah, Sean at mindfulnessexercises.com. It's SEAN at mindfulness exercises.
I probably am going to have you do that for us.
Sure.
We do a lot of trainings, but having trainings is also pretty cool. So what you and I had talked about on our call before this is that what is mindfulness? Like, is it meditation? Is it self-awareness? What is mindfulness?
Yeah, so it's really this energy of being awake and aware to the present moment. It's this sustained, sort of non-judgmental moment-to-moment awareness of whatever's happening. And so we're not trying to make certain things happen or fix anything. We're just noticing what's here, either in our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, and just kind of hanging out with it for a little bit, noticing how the experience is changing over time. It can include sights and sounds and smells and tastes and, sensations as we walk, as we eat, as we breathe. We're just noticing what's here. We're being present to the moment. So it's not about thought control. It's not about believing anything. It's not religious or dogmatic. It's something we all already do anyway, to different degrees. And so what I offer and what a lot of mindfulness teachers offer are just ways of increasing our mindfulness and integrating it into more parts of our life. And this can be within meditation. It can be just in our daily life as we're doing the dishes, working, playing baseball, golf. So we can integrate this sustained moment-to-moment awareness as we do anything. But meditation can be a wonderful sort of training grounds to cultivate it even more.
So we also talked about what mindfulness isn't. So what are some of the misnomers around mindfulness?
Yeah, it's sometimes when I say I'm a mindfulness teacher, some people say, "Oh, well, I'm, Christian or Muslim. I don't like any of that Buddhist stuff." And so it's not Buddhist and it's not Christian. It's not belief based. It's just something that any of us can do anytime, just noticing what's in our own experience. And it can actually lead us to, really walk the walk of whatever our faith is, whether we're Christian or Buddhist or atheist. It's not about thought control. It's not about stopping our thoughts, just about noticing what's here. It's not woo-woo. It's very evidence-based. A lot of neuroscientists have shown the efficacy and the validity of this practice and it helping our nervous system and our ability to be peak performers, our ability to connect with others in meaningful ways. Yeah. So, and it's also something anyone can do. It's not just meant for people who were born, kind of relaxed or, born from parents who were hermits in the mountains. Like this can be for anybody. If you're type A or type B, if you're driven or not.
So let's talk about type A's because you said sports and athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I have also been doing some reading. I'm reading a book called Peak. And you would think that it's got all sorts of stuff about working hard, but it starts the whole thing off with state of mind. And then, of course, I saw the two sisters, Serena and Venus,
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of things that the father said to them. And then further reading the kind of focus that they had on the game, each of them individually, and then other athletes and even the warriors. You hear stories about that there is not necessarily mindfulness, but there's something going on with these athletes about being really present and aware. And I would say that all of it for me, when I hear you talk or when I participate, it's about giving myself access to this deep level of grounding in reality versus whatever story I'm making up about whatever's going on. So the average person who wants more freedom at work or even more power in performing, why does it work? Why does mindfulness work?
Yeah, a lot of us are trying to fill our heads with so many concepts and kind of overthink our way through things, trying to control all of the stimuli. And, a lot of us know that can lead to burnout and frustration and resistance and working too hard on something. Whereas if we kind of allow ourselves to go with the flow of what's actually happening, we're able to respond to real life stimuli so much quicker because we're a little bit looser. We're flowing with the situation. There's some level of surrender. I would call it more like allowing ourselves to meet each moment as it's happening by continually opening to what's actually happening. It's not about us trying to fit all these, pegs into these holes. It's about just like relying on our intuition, our own innate wisdom. Like, it's about trusting the moment and trusting ourselves that we can meet this moment with presence and that we'll be able to know what to do when those moments arise.
Yeah.
And so there's a level of trust, surrender, allowance. That takes courage, because it's like, well, what if I can't? Well, let's try.
Yeah. Well, that's where we started. We started with courage.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up. What advice would you, we were going to do a mini mindfulness practice. Do we have time for that? Do we not? Can we do something in 2 to 5 minutes?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Anywhere from 10 seconds to, 5 minutes is fine. We can do a little mini practice.
Let's do a 2-minute. I'm ready.
All right. Sounds good. So let's just maybe take a deep breath or two. And we can gently close the eyes or look downward to limit visual distractions. Maybe sensing our feet on the ground, our body on the seat. Maybe softening the shoulders. Softening the muscles of the face. Allowing the belly to rise and fall with each breath. Sensing into belly as it moves. Noticing what we can feel around the heart and the chest. We're not judging these sensations to be right or wrong, good or bad. Just noticing how it's feeling. And can we check in with the body from time to time? Just to notice what we can feel. And may we bring the same quality of gentle awareness to our experience for the rest of the day. Maybe reconnecting with the bottoms of the feet on the ground, or the body on the chair. Maybe taking another deep breath or two. And slowly opening the eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Sean. I almost felt myself falling off my chair. So I had to be like, oh, I must be tired.
Yeah.
Thank you, though. Really, that's like 2 minutes, and the perspective. I think the ability to slow without even trying, just to slow down, it just allows me to see that things might not be as bad as I think they are, or that there's a solution right around the corner. So thank you so much, Sean, for spending time with us on Work Liberated. And one more time, for people who want to learn how to do mindfulness, you have an online platform.
Yeah, people can check out mindfulnessexercises.com anytime.
Awesome. And we'll be
Yeah.
reaching out to you for our own, the one around the communication when you're upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially we're working sometimes with clients who are very upset. And what I've been doing is I let them vent, but I haven't been saying, I can hear your pain. Or I can
Mhm.
tell you're upset about this. What do you need to say? Sometimes, I mean, if the person's really on a tirade, I'll say, okay, do we need to take a time out? But I want to be able to meet that anger, because there's a lot of it right now in the world with what's
Yeah.
going on. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that you get a copy of this when it's ready.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching another episode of Work Liberated. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends, put a comment in the comment section, and like it. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.